Hello,
Hello.
streamers.
Hello, anyone watching. Okay, so we need to figure out a better time for these meetings because it's hard to get everyone, get a schedule that works for everyone. Because a lot of people aren't able to attend apparently. So I need to set up a poll to find out what time people are available. It seemed that the late morning, my time, was the best at first, but now I don't know.
Maybe we could do more frequent
Yeah, I'm
meetings.
wanting at least two a week. Um, so, got someone who says there needs to be something for the North America-based people. You know, my concern, as I voiced it earlier, whether you be delegating it to someone who has the ability to cater to another time while you run EU stuff. Funny thing is, I'm not in the EU, but yeah, I really need to know.
Retro says that the thing is that it's currently the middle of the American working day.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
It's partly why I'm leaving in half an hour as well.
But
So
no, you should just call in sick. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
well, it's class, so they don't care if I show up or not. But I have to
It's
go
not
for
like
my
that's
test.
important. Like you're really going to learn anything. This is educational. This is practical experience.
I actually really like this class. So Retro says if you delay it by 2 or 3 hours, I think it might be good. Wondering face. Thinking.
Honestly, it's better for me if it's later. Um, but there's a lot of days right now where 3:30, I'm very busy from 3:30 to about 5 or 6.
Welcome, Darth Augustus.
Hello? You can't see me, but I'm waving at
Hi.
you.
Hello.
Welcome.
And I assure you I'm using all 5 fingers this time.
How's everyone this Friday? Friday, right?
It's Friday? That explains a lot.
Seemed like last time we might have just sort of a slow trickle of people to come in. I also think the mods should ping or something.
Well,
Spam art request?
let's
Got you.
try and make sure next week we get in as much as we can because meetings. I might try and do 3 meetings. Just to get more stuff done because I want to get this worked out. I've created a working draft. It's basically just a stripped down Mark IV Constitution that we can start to fill out. Um, which
I was also thinking a potential option for you to consider is just going through the table and sort of just seeing if there are any common threads among any of
that's
the
what we're going.
proposals.
Yeah, I'm going
Like
to do
things.
that. I'm going to post a link to the working draft, and it'll be open for editing during the meetings, and then it'll be open for comment when we're not in the meeting. I need to unlock the channel real quick.
Okay.
Okay, the meeting channel is open.
Cool.
So how do we feel about the preamble? Should that just stay as it is? Or should we...
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so
do we
personally.
really
I don't think it.
believe in one RNG? Is this... can we really be enforcing that on people?
I feel like RNGesus has a place in all pantheons and such forth.
right back, guys.
All right. Well, I'm going to look at Masenko's table here. And we've got 12 different people listed here.
Oh. Right. That's a problem.
Oh yeah.
Can I see a lot of like add-on to this?
Okay, so should I just look over the table of proposals alphabetically down the list?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so
Yeah.
we've got 141135, who wants a bicameral parliament with a house of province and a house of empire. So this is very province-based, with based around 3 contiguous cities equaling 1 province. Capital is always its own province, with a Ministry of Internal Borders and a citizenship system. So it really seems like most of the proposals here are looking for a provincial system with a citizenship model. So it seems like that's what we're going to do here, because that's what the poll indicated. That's what this is indicating. People want to try this out.
Yeah. I mean, there are some proposals without a citizenship system, but yeah, it's mostly provinces.
It looks like a majority really are wanting that. And it seems like we're kind of wanting provinces to be about 2 to 3 cities.
Yeah, that's a good
with
number,
a goal of
honestly.
about 3 provinces. And so it's kind of the question of how do we figure the provinces out. We've got 14, 11, 35. I'm just going to say 14. Wants a ministry to manage that. Alpha wants it done constitutionally. My system is a petitioning and referendum system. Jack wants it constitutionally. Masenko wants the legislator to manage it. A lot of people want this constitutionally mandated. Some want it by the legislature. I'm not quite sure how the Constitution mandate works here. Is it like saying that the Constitution defines a certain number of cities will be in a province, or?
From what I'm understanding is that the Constitution states this is how a state is made.
Okay, so that would actually be compatible with these other. Like, you could have the Constitution mandate the Ministry of Borders, or you could have it discuss the petition and referendum system. So it's kind of a little vague on that. It just means it needs to be in the Constitution.
All right.
Yeah, so
me personally, I think that the Constitution shouldn't. I don't want this system to be like a power just given to the legislature, because I don't think
it could.
that's a great system. Or a ministry, just like making a ministry in the Constitution for it.
I think the ability to draw and change change
borders
can be a very troublesome thing if given to the legislature. It's like asking for gerrymandering.
I mean, I could easily see gerrymandering happening, yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, if you have any kind of provincial border that can be redrawn in any way, that is a potential. But if it's the legislature that's doing it, then it's especially a problem. So that means we are going to have a provinces and citizenship section.
Right.
So
the yays have it for citizenship for sure.
Everyone, I'm back.
Hey.
Topic right now?
Okay, so looking at 14 again, let's look at the executive who wants a council of governors plus a chief executive. So that would be like the president with governors of the provinces.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alpha wants the provincial governors plus the 5-man ministry. We have
Oh.
Jonas wants a president. And now my system,
Specifically, they
you had
also
my executive structure saying governors, executives chosen by the state, but that was actually not correct. Because my system never discussed the executive branch. It was only meant to cover the legislative. The executive model was left out. So I actually
you could put NA there, but I saw that you had included
I had
governors
discussed
or some
the role
form
of
of.
governors, but they serve to represent their cities, whereas the actual
Right.
and I had actually talked about a president or executive in the proposal, but yeah, there will be, there are governors, but they're not the ones that are actually running the game.
Okay, I just figured they would. I kind of assumed they were executive since they were the ones sort of implementing the decisions for their
Well,
specific states.
You remember the mayors in Mark III?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something similar to that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, in that case, you can just put NA, or if you wanted to put something that you had an idea for, feel free.
So monarchy and cabinet, monarch plus prime minister, chancellor and prime minister, prime minister. The common theme here is people seem to want is that there's more interest in a single executive.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends on what we want to prioritize in our executive. A lot of people are just saying we need the executive to just execute all the orders in game and then not really do much, like unless it's ceremonial in the metagame, I guess. Oh,
There's a lot of different rules that have been promoted through these proposals, but
Well,
it's kind of hard. The kind of function very differently, and some of them are like dependent on whether or not a province is included in the mix or not, a provincial system. Because some of them just don't have provincial systems. Some of them are just an elected ministry. Some of them are an elected president or monarch or someone like that, but without provinces. Some of them are with provinces. Some of them are like a ministry that is made up of ministers from separate provinces. It's like options there.
Well, as I'm looking at this, at the poll, there is an overwhelming majority that want a ministry of some kind, as opposed to a presidency, which is 31%, whereas a ministry is quite a bit more. It's about more than 60%.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. I'm seeing most of the proposals are suggesting a single executive, whereas the poll shows the community wants a ministry.
The thing is, most proposals are from the most active people in the community, and most casual viewers would like to see a system similar to Mark IV because of how well that worked.
Right. And
So I think people who aren't as familiar with what we're doing here would gravitate more towards a ministry as well, just because just on the surface it's more representative, right? It's more democratic. So that might also be a factor.
Yeah.
So, I'd say it's pretty clear people want multiple executives instead of just one. So we have Alpha's suggestion of provincial governments plus a 5-man ministry, which
I think that's too much. Personally, that means you get up to 3 plus 5, an 8-man ministry.
now what if
I don't think
I
that
think
might.
what if we had the
Sorry, go ahead.
the
Go ahead.
governors make up the ministry?
I mean, that was a plan. I'm willing to back that. It's just that a separately elected ministry plus the governors might be too much.
Yeah. And maybe
I think the first question we should tackle, rather than legislature executive, is whether or not we're going to go into this using provinces. Because I think a lot of how our government is structured will depend on whether or not provinces are
I think
in the Constitution.
the proposals are mostly in favor of it. The polls were in favor of it. So I think the provincial and citizenship system is going to happen. So
I mean, the problem with citizenship is how do you declare citizenship, and how's that going to affect the meta, and how's it going to affect people,
Right.
casual viewers from participating.
Well, my idea, what I want, is for you to just say, I live in such and such place. Maybe create a form or even put it on the registration where you just change your city. And how I would like to do it, if we use an automated thing, is like there's a cutoff of 1 week where whatever city you live in on a certain day is what you're counted in on the polls. Or the other idea is just have you declare it on the ballot. I really think it should be as little complication. I think people should just say, I live here, and that's it.
Hmm.
That becomes dependent then on our automated system. So, like, as long as it's, I remember in Mark III, the whole hassle of pins and voter registration was a real pain in the ass, and it led to a lot
Are
of
you referring
people
to the
not
original,
like.
to the first pin system, or the second pin system?
You see, and there's the fucking problem in of itself. So, yeah, any citizenship system has to be like from a tech level, just
Right.
simple as hell.
Right.
That it works simply enough.
That's kind of the thinking is, I just want it to be something kind of consequential. You can just, when you're voting, like, probably the easiest thing is just stick it on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
But there's problems doing it that way. But, I know not everyone has a lot of time, but part of the problem with the voting in Mark III, and it was a big issue, was the electoral board and I had a falling out. I ran the validation and the registry system, and they decided they wanted to run the ballots themselves, and they insisted I hand over all of the voters' registration information. They wanted me to give out the pins to the board, and I didn't want anyone outside moderation to get the pins, which meant they couldn't validate without running it through my system. And so they went ahead and made their own system that was separate from mine, and that's why there were 2 registries and 2 separate pins. And there was nothing I could do about that, other than shutting my system down and letting them do everything.
Well, was there any other difference between the systems?
Their system was easily compromised and got hacked a couple times.
I'm sorry.
Jesus.
What?
That's fair.
First off, why would you hack it? And 2, how?
Because DOS loves to mess with things and wanted to see if he could. And he did.
Understandable.
That's perfect.
Also, I finished my proposal.
Okay.
Ooh.
So, yeah, we're going to do a provincial system
Some.
of some way.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different types of provincial systems that have been proposed.
Right.
So I think we should kind of break that down.
Okay. So we're gonna. I guess we'll come back to the executive topic. Provincial structure. Again, we have. Seems pretty common to have the capital being its own province.
Yeah.
We have Tiberius saying a city.
Well, there's also
Each city is their own province, but the problem I have with this is a problem we had in Mark II was every city had to have a mayor. And as we got towards the end of the game, we had a ton of cities which required a whole lot of people to hold office. And we had a dwindling population, which meant we had a whole bunch of new jobs to fill and not as many people to fill them.
Mm-hmm.
well, you're missing the second part of that, which is the legislature
Right,
can
they
shrink
are going to have to
the
modify it,
number of provinces.
but that's something that should be avoided in the first place, I'd think.
I don't necessarily agree. I think that if the legislature can control the number of provinces, then in any case we're in okay shape, because then, in the case of an emergency, then they just shrink it, right? But that's my own opinion. I don't know.
I mean, it could absolutely work. I think it's not ideal, though.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Ipple Johnsonian wants 4 constituencies, so 4 provinces.
Yeah.
I think that could be too many if we have a drop in numbers.
A
to-
fixed number is just not a good starting point for a province system. I think.
Honestly,
What
I
if we
don't
polled
think.
it?
The thing is about provinces in the beginning is that you only have one city. How are you going to divide the provinces?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
His proposal specifically isn't about cities. It's about a legislature that's divided up between 4 populations within Democraciv. They're not assigned any sort of citizenship or anything. They could be, but the proposal doesn't go that far. It's essentially you have a population of 100, you divide them 25 each, and they elect legislators, right?
So it's based on population, not. Okay.
I think that might be a little hard to explain to people
Not
because
starter.
there's nothing to really represent.
Yeah.
It's easy for people to see cities or states as the dividing point. But if you're just saying, well, here's a division, we're not quite sure what it is, it's just a division, that's a little trickier.
Yeah. Another thing to consider is like Alpha's proposal, and let's see if there were any others. Like Jack's proposal, the provinces themselves would be different players in a multiplayer game of Civ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's feasible right
I can see
now.
where that could go wrong. Sorry, Espresso, what are you
I
about to
said I
say?
don't think it's feasible right now.
True. Agreed.
Put it to a poll instead of dismissing his thing. Why don't you put it to a poll?
It actually is something to be put in a poll, yeah. Yeah,
Alright.
Okay.
yeah, we are going to be doing polls on a lot of stuff. That one just hasn't come up yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're also, even if we put something in the working draft, we're still going to get feedback on it and polls on it to see, are people really agreeing with this? Do we need to change course? So it's okay if we put something in the working draft right now and then get it removed later.
Okay.
Also, are we considering doing the Civ tournament now? That way we could get the Civ vote out of the way while we're doing the Constitutional
Yes,
Convention?
it will be done during the convention. I have been trying to decide: do we want to do the brackets, which is really popular, or just do a point-based
Runoff
vote?
vote.
Let's just see.
Another thing to consider is that
wants the brackets?
Two things. Two things.
Uh,
One, definitely put that to a poll because I absolutely don't agree with the brackets. Second, if you guys do the brackets, vote totals do need to be hidden. They can't be shown throughout this little tournament
Right.
thing. If voter totals are shown, it's going to inspire people to go and vote against like popular opinions just to be dickheads. It's absolutely going to happen. So even if one wins against three other civs, they don't know if it was a landslide victory. They don't know. They have no idea. So that if you guys do go that route, which I really hope it doesn't, then it definitely needs to be hidden vote totals.
I agree, but I am also in support of the brackets myself. One more thing to consider about the brackets or just choosing a civ in general, not necessarily about the brackets, is that I believe or three civs from the new expansion have not yet been announced.
Yeah.
So it's important that, like, I don't know how we want to go about that, whether or not we just want to include several mystery civs into the polls, or just not include
I
those,
would just not
or
include them
wait.
because if we don't know, we don't know.
What if one of them are super cool, you know?
Well, blame
Ottomans are
Firaxis.
supposed to be coming out.
Then write a letter of complaint to Firaxis.
But Ottomans.
Or what you can do is that you don't do the bracket things. You just do what we did in Mark IV, which was point-based first selection just to get a few civs out of the way, and then we do a runoff of the two most popular civs.
That's what I really want to do, but the bracket thing is really popular. I really just want to do a point-based vote. I was actually going to do a top 5 choices.
Yeah, that could work. Also, I think what could happen is that if you want to do this during the convention, if you want to launch with Gathering Storm to get the most popularity, then you could. That gives us an extra week to actually figure out the Constitution before we have to ratify it and elect the government. Personally.
I guess my point for a bracket system was I really didn't find for civ choice very fun. I thought it promoted certain garner the votes for specific civs, but like it was just sort of like a one and done situation where you voted here. Oh, here were some of the top ones. You had some people who were really pushing for different civs, but then it just felt like once it was decided, it was decided. And, it didn't really have a whole lot of build up.
It's gonna be.
I guess that's my finer point. But I gotta go now, so
Okay.
I'll see y'all later.
Right.
See it.
The
The thing about the bracket thing was that during Mark IV, a lot of the parties formed to support a civ, and a lot of political dealing started with the civ vote. Like, I clearly remember making deals with Charlie to get China for the Mark IV civ in exchange for like legislative deals and stuff like that.
Right.
So if you want to do this slowly, then I'm not sure if parties are going to take off like they did in Mark IV.
Yeah.
Because that was the
The argument for the brackets was that it was entertaining, exciting, brought in people. I personally found it boring, and was kind of confused by it all. Just because I was occupied on other stuff, but I just let Dive handle all that.
Yeah.
I have a counter to the whole fun part of the tournament, especially for new players. If you get new players that come in and they want to vote for their favorite civ, whatever. I mean, I can't remember exactly how many civs there are, but depending on how you do the bracketing, you're going to need
36 or 39, something like that.
Okay, and then I can't remember exactly how many tiers of brackets you're going to have to do at that point. Then,
Right.
which is going to be it's not going to be a 1 week thing.
Well,
It's
I
not
was
going to be
going
quick.
to,
But
if I
what
do
I'm
the
saying-
brackets, I'm going to have all of the civs voted at one time, so it's going to be cut in half every time. So let's say there's 40, so there's going to be 20 in the second round, and then 10.
Well, yeah, that's just I mean that's just how it works. But I mean the
how
problem
long
is
does
too
it
if
time
we
to
get
vote
new
then?
players in that want to vote for say I don't know China or whatever,
Yeah.
no one's going to pick
It
China
would
again.
take
If you
about
get a
6
new player that wants
weeks, I
China, they're
think,
going
to do
yeah.
it.
Well, what I'm getting to is we're gonna if you get new players that come in and they're like I want to play as China,
Yeah.
they're gonna vote for it. They're gonna see it loses in the first bracket, and they're gonna go fuck this, and then they're gonna leave.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it.
You know,
That's my
I'm
counter to
thinking
the
when you
fun and
get
the
in with time and you get into the argument about politics, I am really thinking just doing the point system.
Yeah. Also, even if the Civ loses, he still built the party.
Yeah. So
That's what happened with Dow and everyone
So
else.
what I would
You still have.
recommend right now is people need to start getting out and campaigning for their civs. Get the
Right.
hype going up there. Get a political movement now.
it's definitely been happening for sure behind some scene.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot behind the scenes things happening with political parties and stuff like
Yeah.
that because the moderation doesn't want political parties at all at this moment.
Well, I think at
No
this point
campaigning.
Still
you're going
happening.
to have a vote. In fact, unless someone's really going to argue for the bracket, I'd say I'm going to put the vote up right away and have it run for like a week.
Love it.
And get it done like now. And have it done
That's
Yeah,
a great idea.
done by the
A
end
lot
of the
of
work.
week.
people are waiting until the civ is chosen to either form a party or to come up with an idea. So, I mean, the quicker we can get that done, the more we can get some campaigning
But I
going, the more
really
that people
think
can
if I
start aligning and
when
have
I
fun.
put the form live, I think people should have some time to campaign and fight for their civ choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing also is that do you want the launch of Mark 5 to coincide with the launch of Gathering Storm?
That would be cool, I think. I don't want to launch before
Then
it's
we-
ready, but yeah.
Uh,
That would be cool.
because the thing is, it's launching on the 14th,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So you need a government election by the 8th so that they'll come into power that week. So we could play the game on Friday or the weekend and still be around the time Gathering Storm launches.
Well, unless people pre-order, even if that's the day the game comes out, doesn't mean they'll have it downloaded and installed.
That's why you host it on the weekend, but still.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to go on the hype train, then we need to get this done by the 8th.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I see someone's really doing some work on the on formatting of the working draft. Whoever that is, thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay.
Are we keeping the basic rates section? Sorry.
The what?
Basic rates section?
If we want. That hadn't been brought up.
Alright.
I just left it there. See, for
Okay,
instance,
because-
everyone has the right to reside in China. We could leave that in there, which would be funny if we pick a different civ. And I'm the kind of person that
I mean, we'll
would
probably-
like to leave that in there just to see if anyone notices. But
I mean, that was made in a completely different political environment than we are now, so...
yeah, if you don't like it here in Scotland or France, go to China. You have the right to live in China.
But what if China isn't a civ in our game?
Doesn't matter.
And what
go
if
to
we conquer
China.
China?
My god. What's going to do? Crap. Is there anything else we want to discuss on the civ vote? And when do you want the actual ballot to be live?
I'm thinking. I guess I have to always nervous about making hard announcements till a decision is made, but I pretty much decided I want to make it live on Monday, close it on Friday night. Is
That could work.
because I want it would
Actually.
give most of a week. I could have the votes all validated and double checked in time. It would give me the weekend to make sure everything went smoothly, and then announce it on Monday.
Yeah. That could work. Are we going to go for runoff or just top 5? Sorry.
Actually, we're going to do a point based. So
Alright.
it'll come up with an immediate winner. The system I'm going to use, it's a variation of the one we used to use, but it's the 5-point. It's the 5-vote system, which I've never gotten to use before, where first choice is 15 points, second choice is 12 points, third... Hang on, am I thinking this right? Okay, no. First choice is 9 points, second choice is 6 points, third choice is 3 points, fourth is 2 points, first is 1 point, fifth is 1 point. It's just a scaling version of the point-based system.
So we have a civ by next Monday.
Yes.
Not next Monday, the Monday after.
Monday. This Monday. Not
Okay.
not this Monday, next Monday.
Yeah, that's why I meant.
Right. I'm so confused. Yes.
Me
We
too.
will have the civ decided by then.
Alright.
And the tiebreaker is going to be based on by priority first votes and second votes. Basically, if there's a tie in points, whoever got the most first votes breaks the tie. If they're tied for first votes, of course, we look at the second votes. If their votes were identical for some reason, then we have to do a runoff.
Okay.
That's not likely, but it could happen. So get out there and campaign for your civ. I'm hoping over the weekend, before it goes live, we get some campaigning going, we get some advertising going, we really get people kind of riled up. You get 5 choices in priority, with the real weight being on your first 2 choices.
And give me a second. Hurry up. Alright. Also, I was going to say, damn. So what we're talking about next, because we got the civ vote down.
So we got the civ vote is happening. I wanted to talk about the structure of the 3 branches. Let's see. An easy one to do is just the legislative branch. Did we like how it ran in Mark IV?
RB, do you want to comment on that? RB.
Well, we still advocate introducing committees for dealing with more specified questions and types of laws and such.
Mostly people like that there are calls for reform multiple times, but overall it went smoothly.
Oh, and percentage voting.
Oh yeah, that should too.
Did we like the composition of 5 justices with a voted-in Chief Justice?
It worked for Mark IV at least. Like, the thing was we had the same Chief Justice for most of the entire Mark.
Yeah.
And then, once it changed, there's a whole controversy of one of the justices resigning and calling everyone corrupt and stupid.
Wow, someone throwing
That
a
was
temper
fun.
tantrum in politics? That's so unrealistic.
Yeah. There was an entire committee created just to investigate this tantrum. There was apparently an 18-page document of evidence of us being corrupt and stupid.
Wow.
And I believe Arch and Joe Parrish both have access to the doc, and they haven't released it yet. I really want to see it.
That is the second most ridiculous thing I've ever heard from a court in Democraciv.
What's the most ridiculous thing?
You've never heard of DOSgate, have you?
Well, I heard of Dasgate before, but what?
Let's say, okay,
Wait, what was-
Please explain.
can you imagine
never heard
a
of
court
DOSgate.
case marked as not safe for work?
I'm sorry.
Yes, I could.
It was the only time we had Democraciv court documents with a not safe for work tag.
Please explain further. We're on Twitch, so we won't get demonetized for not being advertiser friendly.
We don't have time to explain that in detail.
Just a brief explanation. Yeah.
Basically, the mods in the court went to war over a ban over obscene content.
Oh, was it the Asian pictures?
No. But same
Because
guy.
that was. Yeah.
Oh.
That's why it's called
Yeah.
DOSgate.
I mean, like, right before Das left the court, he spammed the private chat with Asian pictures.
Not surprised.
And that kind of scarred Joe for life, but you know.
Poor Joe. Yeah, it was a huge scandal really early in Democraciv.
Wasn't there, like, the one I know most is that he got banned for using alt in multiple government positions.
Yeah, that was Mark III.
Oh.
Yeah, he had two identities that he was using, and he... What was it? He was legislator and Supreme Court at the same time, I think.
I mean, I was legislator and the Chief Justice at the same time at the end of Mark IV. No one gave a temper tantrum except for that one justice.
Well, you know, the whole dual mandate loophole.
Wasn't broken. I mean, it got fixed, like, almost, but not really.
Which...
I mean, it actually became useful because legislators ended up being, like, the #1 proxy for ministers and Supreme Court justices, so...
I just removed that that loophole from the Mark V Constitution draft.
No.
Please.
Revert.
Stop. Revert. Damn it. Why is it not going back? Damn it. There we go.
Yes.
Damn it.
No.
Yeah.
Good God. No, I need to copy that. Ha.
Wait, was it because
Yes.
the legislator was defined as a citizen at one
Yes, it
point and
was-
we never bothered to
It's
remove
because we had ended Mark IV in direct democracy, and the guy that wrote this was really pro direct democracy. And the original draft
Yeah.
of this was a direct democracy constitution, which defined a legislator as any citizen who participated in a stream.
Yeah. Oh my. Wait. Can I just talk about another Mark IV controversy for a second?
Sure.
Have you ever had problems with legislators switching parties?
Yes, it's come up.
Well, in Mark IV, there's this guy who ran on a peace ticket, Ravis, and he switched parties instantly to form a new party, which was the Glorious China Party, which is the closest thing we got to a Chinese supremacist party.
That's the first time
And
I've ever
there
heard
was
the
a-
phrase Chinese supremacist.
And the guy who was the head of a ticket sued him, saying, hey, you can't do that, you're part of a ticket. But then the court said, there's nothing legally wrong with switching parties.
And I believe they were correct there.
Yeah, and the thing was, the Ipple who wanted he wanted Ravis kicked off of the legislator, removed as a legislator, and replace him with another person. I think it was Prospero. And Ravis told me in PMs like, hey, this guy is just a proxy for me. So if he gets in, he's just gonna resign, declare me No, he's just going to declare him the proxy.
I
Sorry.
do think proxies are something that need to be looked at more carefully. Have always been problems with people using the proxy system in weird ways. But when it comes to changing parties, I'm thinking of Joe Lieberman switching parties from the Democrats while he was in office, and that was a big controversy. But there was nothing that could be done about it.
Yeah.
If we had more of, well, this would kind of go against democracy tradition with like putting rules inherently in the Constitution about how Parliament or legislature should run. But if we had some of the UK's rules around like how a Parliament is formed, how a coalition gets
Tradition
formed.
is not necessarily something we have to do. If we have some good idea, we can work with it. But what do you have in mind specifically?
Sorry, we're being attacked by squirrels.
Understandable.
I mean, it just comes down to who you think should own the seat. Is it the individual who got elected, or is it the party who the individual ran for?
Yeah, that was the argument in the Ravis case, and the court declared the individual owned the seat, so he had every right to change party. And then he got impeached over it.
Oh, impeachment.
And then that ended up being another lawsuit, which I proudly won, which declared the impeachment trial unconstitutional because it didn't give... It was declared an unfair trial, which is against Ravis's basic rights, because the vote to impeach him took 6 hours, while all other legislative votes took 24 or 48. So it was and just complained that he couldn't vote because he was asleep during the entirety of the impeachment trial. So the court took that as, yeah, you rushed the trial and you screwed up even with your own procedures, which
So
we
you
had
won the case on the
done.
grounds that because the vote was held very quickly and declared finished, because he wasn't present at the vote because of the timing?
Yes,
Okay, so
that was the argument.
So
and
why didn't Espresso v. Ministry win?
I think that almost got overturned with that case. It was a different Supreme Court at the time, too. Well, the argument was that... the thing about this case was that because Just wasn't there to vote, and his vote would have probably prevented Ravis from getting impeached, that not only violated... Although it didn't necessarily violate his right to vote, it did violate Ravis's right to a fair trial. Because his vote could have changed the outcome. That was the argument. And that somehow won.
It's interesting. I wasn't paying attention by that point. I know that there was a big controversy there.
Yeah.
That was the point where I just had checked out and didn't want to be stressed by any of this, which honestly was really good for me to get away from Democraciv for a while.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the guy who got impeached left Democraciv, and then he came back for like 2 seconds, but he's gone under the radar now, so... Oh. It was a big, like, moral victory, because that took a lot longer than expected. Wait. Harvey, when did that case come out? Was it during, like, the fifth government? Fifth dynasty? When that case was ruled?
Fourth, maybe. It was the last one before I left.
Crap. Yeah, you left after the fourth because peace amendment bullshit. Crap, I'm not supposed to swear. What?
Yep, you watch your language.
Alright, what's next up?
Okay. Well,
yes.
I'm looking over the working draft of the Constitution right now and thinking we should start filling some stuff in. I'm going to put this China thing in bold print because I want to keep that in there.
You
Yes,
keep that, but not the loophole in legislature.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, we really don't want to start this off that way, and I don't want that to be something that I miss going over this later. Better to get it out now. Replace this with president, king. Does that say wife? I don't have my glasses on.
I'm sorry, what? Are you?
Yeah, apparently it says replace this with president, PM, king, wife.
No. Never mind it.
The proper term is consort, not wife. That way is Jesus Christ. Damn it. Also, can I propose how I think provinces should work?
You've got the doc open. You can write it down.
Oh, crap. Oh, yeah, that's
So,
right. Just. I
Stake a claim.
something I was gonna mention earlier about my citizenship thing is one of the things it does is we no longer vote for parties and we no longer have to use proportional representation. It removes that need entirely because it's voted on a local level. So instead, you're voting for individuals.
Like the ministry.
Right. But you're voting on the local level.
I mean, it seems like a fun system, don't get me wrong, but it's more of the argument if we want citizenship or not. Because the argument for it is RP value, but the argument against is it's just not a barrier for new players to get in.
For a citizenship?
So, citizenship, yeah.
Well, looking over the poll and looking at the proposals, I think citizenship is really popular.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm not denying the fact that citizenship is popular, I'm just saying there are counter arguments to it.
Yeah.
When we're talking about citizenship, is that citizenship of a city or a province,
That's
or
what we're trying
what
to
are we
figure
talking
out.
about?
We haven't clearly defined the specific form of
What is a citizen?
Of citizenship and provinces. That's what we're discussing, is what type of model are we wanting to use.
Yeah.
And so
it's either
we've got some where we predefine several where we predefine like 3 provinces. We have one where any 3 consecutive cities would be a province. One where the cities are divided, where just the whole game is divided into 4 groups. We have mine, which is kind of a dynamic system that has this whole process of forming states. So there's some different ideas about what how we want to do the provinces.
Let me actually look. Well, my idea was that you still elect a national assembly, but you divide it up into the provinces. Like, sort of like Arby's committee ideas, but more generalized. Like, say, you want 3 provinces, so you just divide the national legislature by 3, depending on the ratio of the population divided. Let's say province A has, say, a third of the population, so a third of the legislature goes to that province. But province B only has, like, a fifth, then a fifth of the legislature goes to that province. Something like that. That was my idea. Wait, first, can you explain your province system again?
My
Because
system?
I think that might... Yeah, because the main problem is that if you start off with provinces, then
Okay.
how are you going to divide it?
With my system,
Continue.
we start out with just one province, and that's federal. The federal is its own
Yeah.
thing. And so we start with a federal government. Once we have more than one city, the citizens of anything but the capital can petition to create a state.
Yeah.
And if they succeed in that, if they manage to pass a referendum for statehood, we now have a province. And a province can be multiple cities or one city as long as it has 5 citizens in it.
Mm.
And so that way we can have as many states as we want, so long as we have the population for it and the interest in it. And then there's rules for if a state gets abandoned or their population drops as to how to manage that. But it's something where it's kind of dynamic. It's only as many states as we have population and interest.
Can the state legislators come together? Like, I'm trying to think. What I'm trying to think is that, hey, we could elect the legislators locally, but all of them together will become the National Assembly, which will act as the federal government.
Well, it's I'm kind of basing it on how the House of Representatives in the U.S. is formed, where you have a certain segment of the population represented who pick their congressman, who joins the national legislative branch.
Alright.
So yeah, you're picking locally who the legislator is, and instead of picking, well, I'm just going to vote for the Space Communist Party, and then they'll come up with a list of people to nominate, I'm specifically going to pick this person. So,
and how many legislators per province then? Because
every
if you're going
province
by
has
that,
one legislator, unless their population drops down to one person, because of course, then they can't have a legislator because they don't have enough people.
Yeah.
But every state has a legislator, and every 5 citizens above that has a legislator. So it comes to, typically it'll be slightly over 20%, between 20 and 25% representation that way.
Yeah. I mean, that could work with a large civ. I'm thinking.
Well, if people decide, if we don't build provinces, if everyone stays in the capital, it's still going to be one legislator for every population, one legislator for every 5 people plus 1.
Alright.
So yeah, that's if we decide not to do provinces under this system. It still works out very close to the same.
But what's the base number of legislators?
The base?
Question mark.
The base number?
Yeah. Yeah, like how many legislators minimally can there be?
Well, depends on the population.
Be 1 for the Fed.
Yeah, there's just 1.
1 for the Fed plus N for how many states we have.
The minimum number of legislators, let's say we don't want to dip under 20 population total in the game, because that would be bad. So if we stay over 20, we would have a minimum of 5 legislators.
I'm just saying, like, oh, we just found a city right before the elections. Like, even before we play the game, how many legislators would there be?
Okay, well, now, the thing about founding cities is it depends on who founds it. The city belongs to the state that founded it, by the state that made the settler. If the settler were captured, or if it were made in a federal city, then it just becomes part of the capital.
It becomes federal land until it's incorporated.
Right. It's federal until it joins a state.
Right, I'm back.
And so,
hey, howdy.
Founding a city has no impact on the number of legislators at all. It's just added to a current state or to federal.
Like I'm saying, right? how many legislators would there be for the first election?
For the first
How many
election,
seats will be open?
depends on the number
Yeah.
of population. Depends on how many people register to vote.
Oh, a peep. Oh, I'm dumb.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's all based
Thanks.
on the population.
I thought you were talking about in-game population, not.
The problem with in-game population is kind of the irony. Our numbers go down, but the in-game population goes up.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
God. I got worried there for
Yeah.
a second. You were suggesting
no.
in-game population.
In-game population is really hard to work with.
Thank God.
If we were to do in-game population, it's one legislator for every 8 people, for every 8 population points.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
So what's the decision so far?
Civ vote's gonna happen on Monday.
What format are we using? Because people.
Point system. We're ditching the brackets. Unless there's a really good argument the bracket system can
Everyone
create.
gets 5
then we're
choices.
going for
Doing
points.
a point-based system.
Okay, sure, whatever you think is best.
You're still probably gonna get outrage over it, but who cares at this point?
As in, I don't care that much because I don't really mind what Civ we play personally, but I know there's people that care deeply. So I would have like some rebuttal and some good justifications for why you're using the system you're using ready.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter what I do, people are going to have a problem with it. But, I will make my case when it comes up. And
Also, we kind of agree that there will be a province system in this mark. Some form. At least.
Can we? Yeah, I suppose we have done some kind of polling on that. Because that decision being made by 5 people in a
The
voice
thing
chat
is, there's
feels
been
kind of
polling.
weird.
not made by
There's
5
been
people.
polling.
It's made by a poll of 61 people and a number of proposals being compared. It looks like that's where the data is pointing. Say, when I look at the informal poll, what we have is 41% want this, 32% are considering it, only 25% are saying no. So that's pretty solid numbers there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now the debate is how the citizenship is going to be implemented. Because there's been multiple ways to do that.
Right. Do we need to go with I suppose we do need citizenship.
I mean, you could go without it technically, but it eliminates the RP value of a state. Personally, however, because in my system, I just propose if you want to look at it. What I believe could happen is that the executive branch, which will be the monarch, will declare, "Hey, I want 3 states." So the legislature, the National Assembly, the legislature gets divided into 3 sections representing population. Basically, like if a third of the population, an in-game population, is question mark. I think a third of the in-game population's in one district, then it goes into a third of the legislature represents that. That's what I'm trying to aim for. Also, are we trying to increase the number of legislators or not?
I really hope not.
Because
some people
don't like the idea
Some people
of
are.
the number of legislators going over 20-25%.
I mean, like some systems basically remove the executive, so to counteract that, you increase the number of legislators.
Right, which I'm wary of. I really think that the game sessions themselves need to be run by as few people as possible. Which either means a small ministry or a president.
Or monarchy, but let's not get into
or
that.
an appointed streamer.
Yeah.
The monarch would be the appointed streamer, essentially.
Right.
That's head state
Well,
thing.
I'm
Depends
not
on.
necessarily referring to who streams the game, so the appointed streamer isn't quite the same as it is. I'm talking about how decisions are made. We see with Ministry, you have to have, say, 5 people in the room, and they all have to discuss every decision as it's made and come to an agreement for every click of the mouse. Whereas a president figure can do that much more quickly and much more effectively than if they're having to discuss every action. You don't have to vote for end turn in that case.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what I like the idea of having is having one sort of central person, whether it be a president or a monarch or whatever, who makes the decisions, and then them having a cabinet of ministers surrounding them, and then sort of the executive being able to make their own procedure where they can give the ministers like actual power if they want, or they could just make the ministers advisory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do definitely believe that we need to allow any government system to defer its power to a lesser body at its own discretion. Say like we have a president who has the ability to create to do military strikes. They can appoint a general and give all of their power to control the military to the general, or to choose the technology to a tech advisor. They could defer that power to another person to make more decisions, take pressure off them, whatever. Because the power would just come from them, and it would be their choice to follow the decision of this other person.
Yeah. I think that could work, but I've been toying around with monarchy because I think that'd be way more RP and make more sense based on timescales we usually are playing. Because people were
We are a democratic simulator, though, so it would have to be a democratic monarchy.
Yeah, elective, of course. It's elective. Yeah, sorry.
I personally don't like the idea. Your random term length.
I really don't like anything random in this simulation.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand that.
Even if we are
I think it would...
blessings of RNG.
I do get it. It's just that I thought it would make more RP sense since the monarch is supposed to be in power for life, or else you're basically a president with a fancy title. That's my thought process.
Well, my thought process was imagine what I imagined was sort of a Great Britain / Netherlands where people wanted to keep a monarchy, but they wanted to make it democratic. So the monarch is essentially just a president. They have the sort of the same kind of powers as they had before, but then all of a sudden democratic.
Yeah, that's the main goal.
So imagine instead of the British people making a constitutional monarch with Mary the First and all that, they said no, we want our monarch to be elected from now on, and the monarch still kept some of their power. That's what I imagined it as. So then you still get this idea of monarchy, but you also get an election, but you don't get the sort of idea it's just a renamed president.
Yeah. I'll just pretend you're not talking bad about my ancestors.
Oh.
What do you mean? Who am I talking bad about?
Queen Mary.
She was British.
Yes, she was. Well, Scottish.
Yeah.
But yes.
No, wait. I think you're thinking of a different Mary.
Possibly. Mary the First.
You're thinking of Mary, Queen of Scots.
Yes, actually.
I'm thinking.
No.
So no, Mary, Queen of Scots is not the same as Mary who married William of Orange.
Yeah, I'm thinking of someone else.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and talk bad about them.
There's been about Marys.
Yes, and now that has gone on record on the stream that I don't know what I'm talking about with history.
Oof.
It's only because I had it in history today.
Watching this comes up during election ads during game.
And I'm even
No.
citing a dubious claim about my ancestry that may or may not be true.
Wow. Are you running for Democratic nomination by any chance?
No, but I am Potawatomi. You think I should run for the Democratic nomination?
As in, like, I'd totally vote for you if I could.
That's a scary thought.
If you want to.
Yeah,
There's nothing really stopping you to do it.
money for one.
And there's probably... Yeah.
You don't get
but
elected
hey,
if you're
there's
poor.
stuff. Here's the thing, there's something called grassroots campaign where you open up a
Do you
Patreon
really think
for you
grassroots
people
politics actually exists anymore?
It could. Have to be start super
Theoretically.
local, but it could.
What could you do if you wanted to become the Democratic nominee?
Well, first you need to be famous. Or notable in any national way, by the national populace to actually have a chance.
I'm still waiting for somebody from Democraciv to become an actual to become like a famous politician.
Joe Parrish is close.
Well, close. He doesn't have much name recognition in America.
Yeah. I mean, he probably has the highest position of all of us there.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Actually, you're talking to the future Prime Minister of the world here.
Shut up.
Oh,
Shush.
wow.
That would
Interesting.
be amazing
So-
to see a Democraciv member in some important
In
office.
government.
Do you think anybody from Democraciv would admit that they were from Democraciv if they were in
I would
office?
hope
The
so.
amount of scandal that would arise out
What,
of this.
saying that you were part of a political simulator online that you learned?
Saying you were a communist in a political simulator online. Maybe
Hey,
won't go
you're
down.
18, you can be a communist now.
Hey, you know, there's people that are saying they'd rather be Russian than Democrat. So, I mean, it's not that far-fetched anymore that, you know, you can say, well, at least I wasn't a Democrat on the simulation. They're like, oh, okay.
I have no confidence in this government.
My god.
Oh, have you guys been following British politics? Because it is quite frankly
I've been
hilarious.
afraid
When
enough of
did
American
they just-
politics.
70 days, 71 more days.
Right, let me
Where are
send
we
you.
at?
Let me send you the best speech possibly in my time that I've been following British politics at least.
Okay, I
The
just
Black
watched a
MP,
part.
I forget which constituency he's
Yeah,
from, right?
Remember, we are in a meeting for the Constitution.
Technically, but you know, it's fine if we go off topic. It's called team bonding.
Yeah, but mostly it means I have all these windows open already.
Oh. Okay.
Right, 1 sec.
There's a question about the Reddit post. Is that an official Civ proposal post or just a discussion? Is that a post that I made or someone else made?
I made it in third instance.
Or son. Of course.
Oh, okay.
Of course,
I
Wes.
see now the Darth Augustus thread. Okay. So to answer Sun Tzu, it is not official, but any type of post like that, we are going to be keeping an eye on.
Oh, Jack just PM'd me saying, hey, make sure you talk about censorship and why there's problems and how to get around with. I think your solution of if people want it, then there you go, but if people don't want it, then it's gone. I think that might be the best approach, question mark?
Well, I'm kind of biased on that one.
I know, but still.
And I feel like,
Like,
I
if
feel
the
like every
people-
time I mention it, I'm like hyping my own horn there, and I feel weird about
To be
it
fair, everyone's
because I really do feel strongly about this system. I actually came up with it at the end of Mark III, but by then people were just so frustrated by citizenship that they didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So I think of all the systems, it's the one that's had the longest to gestate.
Which system is this?
The one I came up with about the states that are kind of scaling and decided by referendum.
Okay, which one is that on the spreadsheet?
The one that says espresso.
That's espresso. Yeah. Crap, I still need to fill my thing out.
Legislature.
Crap.
Governors again?
Yeah.
Yep.
Every state
Oh my
has
God.
someone that represents the state. Whether they're called governor or not is really part of my system. Is that for roleplay purposes and for creative purposes, every state has their own unique government. They can have whatever government they want. My thinking is, if you want a communist state or a fascist state or a direct democracy state, all of that is allowed. So you can try out different governments on a state level if you want.
The real question is, do we have the membership for it? Because I know there's a school of thought which says we have to keep the opportunity for small membership open, and we have to tailor the system so that it works with small membership. And then there's those people that say, if we keep trying to make sure that it works with small membership, we're never going to sort of achieve the growth that we really want.
I designed this with that in mind, actually. If there aren't enough... well, there's two things. If people are actually wanting to do this, if not enough people want to do the citizenship, it never kicks in. If we do have people that are citizens but they stop participating and the population drops, that's also accounted for.
Okay, how is it accounted for? Because I have not read the proposal, sorry.
To form a state, you need 5 people to be willing to form the state, at a minimum.
He's too good to us.
If your city, if the states drop the population to 1 person, they lose their legislative representation by default because they don't have the population for it. And if they don't have enough people that want to participate, regardless of population, they also lose their seat in representation. If a city is abandoned completely, it can just be absorbed by another state. So it's a system that, if people stop participating, goes away, and eventually, if we're completely abandoning the states, it all defaults back to federal control, and it's like we didn't have a citizenship system in the first place, and it's all based on the population of the capital.
Wes is making arguments in general discussion. He basically is arguing that it'll become boring after 3 months, it's gimmick, it won't be fun, and stop making up trends.
We can't really predict that too well. If the system works, I think it'll keep people interested. By tying the legislative seats to the different cities, I think it'll add a new dynamic to the politics by letting you build strongholds and making local races more significant, because that's how you can get a small party in power or get an independent candidate in power, is by getting them support in a single city. You can focus your politics in a single area instead of on so much of a national level. You know specifically that certain people need to be targeted for the vote, which adds just a whole other layer to how this is done. Will that sustain? I don't know. And that's why I like a system that can be turned off if it stops working.
Okay, I have a question related to what Wes said. So if you create a province, is that what are the minimum requirements of the province? Do they have to send national representatives if they have the population for it, and they have to have a governor? Is that right?
They need a governor, and they gain legislative seats. Whether they claim them or not, you can't force them to take their seats. But
their internal management, they can decide themselves.
Yes, internal management as long as they're not breaking any federal laws, they can do anything they want.
Okay.
The requirements for a state are a little more specific in that you have to pick your governor first. You have to say that we do have a government. Doesn't matter what it is, but explain that there is a government. You have to have 5 members, and you have to have all of the cities pass a petition, which then goes to a referendum that has to succeed.
Okay.
Wes was just arguing against city councils, which was basically a government per city.
I don't see Wes's argument. We have a meeting channel for this stuff.
It's in general discussion, because, meeting channels lock 90% of the time, so it's safe to assume it's locked.
Oh, general discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go again.
Sorry,
I
not again.
If the system is flawed, we will bleed users before we turn it off.
Yeah.
The communist local government gimmick is in response. Again, that's an example. I'm saying that if people want that, they can have it. They don't want it, they don't have to have it. It's very open-ended in that. So I try to make it as simple and open for roleplay purposes, whereas the effect on the national level is just the 2 things. The legislators are picked through this process, and the governors who get to manage the cities.
Simple with the problem. Someone wants to argue that start out small with the province idea, which I will agree with. In your plan, there's only like 1 province in the beginning, which is the federal province, right? Alright.
It's like if you imagine Washington, D.C. were given statehood.
Yeah.
Except that instead of a governor, the president or ministry or whoever the executive body is are the mayor or the governor instead. The federal control is completely controlled by them.
Wes is saying your example as an example will make a system interesting / fun. It's not at you.
Is he having a problem with communism now?
No, he's having a space no, he's having a problem with local governments.
Yeah.
That's his problem. I mean, what vision, what happens? Probably just a governor and that's it. Maybe a 5-person legislator if you're really pushing it, but just a governor. Be fine. Oh crap. Okay, Wes is finally moving to convention meeting.
Okay.
He just added me.
Alright. So, I don't. One thing I'm thinking, say we want a monarchy, we could actually have the governor be a monarch. Because, not quite specifying how the governor is chosen. The governor could be picked by a ballot, or they can come up with their own means of picking a governor. It's not that strict. If someone actually wants a monarchy within the democracy, they can have a monarch as long as they send the legislators and they have someone who is speaking for them in the executive.
Espresso, it sounds like you're trying to recreate the Holy Roman Empire.
It
There
does.
are some things that are inspiring this, but
they're technically independent, but they're not independent at the same time.
that's why I
Because
use
neither
the term
Holy
of the proposal semi-independent.
Oh.
This is like.
I will be for faithful HRE. Recreation. I'll be down to a province per person.
The Sith Principality declares independence from this bullshit.
Well,
Yes.
keep in mind I was the one that started the whole Housia movement and was kind of in support of the Siam Fane stuff.
Yeah.
But that's, because I like that idea of role-playing with local areas, getting, just getting local involvement, getting people to focus on events that are happening in a specific area and taking it personally, and getting really invested in that part of the game, which really ties the Civ game to the politics and really enhances the roleplay.
I do get that, but now we're getting into one Civ or multi-Civ.
Yeah.
And what's the saying? Events don't have in a specific area. That's his argument. And since RB's just explaining the system to chat because there are people in chat who aren't in the VC. So are we going multi-civ or just one civ?
We're going to have a poll for that. Of course, I think, personally, I think it's very risky. Someone was talking about the citizenship province system risking destroying the mark, but I think it's more dangerous to try and split the community into multiple civs.
Yes.
Mm. This isn't a country. Oh.
This isn't a country of millions, right? Like I said, our population has ranged from about 17 to 200. Historically, we've alternated between those numbers. Right now, we're at over 100 active people. But I like to think about what happens if we dip down to 15 or less.
Mm.
Alright, by your system, Espresso, if there were 15 people, at best you could have 3 states, but let's just say there's just one. There's just the federal state and it's massive.
You can found a state with 5 people and then have people move out. It doesn't go away if there's less than 5. It goes away if there's no people. However, a small state loses its representation.
I'm saying there should be an absorption rate. Like at a certain point, a state less than functional states, I'm saying, should be forcibly united for just the purpose of giving people representation.
Well, you see, if you're choosing to live in a state that has no representation, you're just hurting yourself. But you could, you could start a process to say, hey, we don't like not having representation. Let's go join the neighboring state. You have that choice.
Yeah, the argument okay, West is saying 15 is a bit severe, I would estimate 20 to 25, and Jack is saying citizenship is just an extra complication for complication's sake.
The lowest number I've ever been able to make functional in planning out Democraciv, like the worst case scenario, was a minimum of 11. I was trying to prepare for a minimum of 7 at one point to keep the game running.
What? Wait, was this at the end of Mark 1 or Mark 3?
Mark 2.
Oh. What? I thought Mark 2 was extremely popular.
It was, but it did kind of taper out at the end. They always do.
I mean, they always do, but how bad was it?
We lose most of our members at the end of the game.
Yeah, I get that. Our vote, the last government election was like 70 votes?
Yeah, Mark 4 has been remarkable, really.
Oh.
So, I mean, this has been... at its peak, Mark II was our most successful, but I think Mark IV was our most stable.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, how bad was the drop
Pre-flood,
from
Mark II
highest
was
to
the worst.
lowest?
Oh yeah, Mark II really did have some close calls. There was some. I'll just say it was some management issues, especially within the mod team, that really had to be worked out. But once we got them, we took off and just soared.
Wait, what was? Oh, pre-flood, as in people flooding in.
Well, let's say there were different eras of Mark II. I could kind of divide it into 3 eras. First was we were just getting kicked off, and we made a lot of mistakes, but there was a lot of enthusiasm,
of course.
And we did kind of come close to losing Democraciv at some point. And then we reformed everything. We got an advertising push. We got a huge influx of members. That's when we peaked at 200. And then we kind of had the late phase where all we did was fight over the Constitution, and we're exhausted.
Oh, so what was the membership at the end of Mark II then?
I don't remember, but
I know
we were down to like 30, I think.
And right now we're down to like 60 active?
Going by...
Or 100?
Going by the referendum, there was about 110. Whether we maintain that, I don't know. I'm hoping with Gathering Storm we're going to get an influx. So an influx on top of 110 really makes me optimistic. It would be awesome if we could get coverage again in a news story. So yeah, if you want to interview someone, if Kotaku is listening, we'll do another interview.
My God.
If the because the last time someone asked the Russians to do something on a campaign thing, but we got covered in the Russian media, very heavily. So,
isn't there a Russian Democraciv now or something like that?
Not that I know of, but we had huge coverage in Russia. There was a lot of Russian interest in the 2016 election, and after the fact, I'm starting to wonder about, why were the Russians so interested in American politics in 2016?
My God.
But we had a huge Russian. We actually had to create a Citizens RU channel because of the Russian influx. We had so many Russians in here that the Citizens chat was getting full of Russian that you couldn't even read it if you didn't speak Russian. So we had to create an RU channel just for the Russian influx. And of course, that died out, so we lost Citizens RU. We got someone translated our constitution into Russian, which was great. It was really neat. And
Jack is still arguing that you could do citizenship promises without citizenship. Like, he's still arguing that.
What would that do? Like, we have the provinces, but why? It's just
committees.
It's just for roleplay then.
Yeah, and let's just say that's not really Czech. It will be Mark III priests and arsons. They're just really boring jobs.
Yeah, because we had all kinds of creative ideas in Mark III, and at the end of Mark II. Mark II ended with our experimental stuff, where we had city council meetings, and we had a bank, and we started a stock market system. We were just trying stuff out. That none of it stuck.
We had that Mark IV did a lot of experimental stuff too, and all of that almost got repealed and or ignored.
Yeah. Well, people get interested for about a week or two, and then done. It's hard to make the stuff maintainable. And
I think we were able to repeal the bank by was it the second or third government dynasty? When did we repeal the bank? RB, were you around when we repealed the bank or no?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. It was the third one. Yeah.
But
we've repealed. Sorry. Make your point.
Wes is saying we had power splitting power into thin issue, which is what he's worried about happening again. There is definitely a problem in a democracy with what happens when everybody has a job. It really does, as weird as it is, that hurts the democracy if everyone has something to do. Most people need to be, most people are just going to vote, and the offices need to be competitive because we need to have the campaigns and that. But if we have local governments, we can give people stuff to do on a local level so they can still be involved without having to go through all the campaigning process, and they can also learn about the game through experience that way. People ask, well, what do we do? Well, check a local government, see what they are looking for.
Well, that was the idea behind gentries, and that ended up being a meme, and then they got combined to like two big gentries at the very end.
It's hard to understand just what a gentry was for and what they, what was the point. We're never very clear.
It was purposely vague because it was supposed to be a standardized system for the government to expand without creating new laws. And then the bank ignored that, and it became a meme with the friendship gentry, and then people complained that there are too many gentries, so we had to like repeal three. We merged like three of them into one giant PO gentry, the public outreach gentry, and then we merged the gentry of investigation and gentry of justice into one giant gentry of justice. And yeah, it was a bureaucratic nightmare at the very end. So, I don't know. Hey, Angus.
Hi.
Hello?
Hello.
What did I miss? Not that it matters.
Well, we decided that we're going to write all the Constitution by ourselves and exclude everyone else. We're not going to have a civ vote. We're just going to pick one at random. And I'm being appointed.
Yeah, we just hit the random button. Would you like to continue the chat with us, Angus? Oh, he muted himself. Okay.
One of us.
Hey! No, I'm good. I just had to blow some stuff up in my basement.
Okay,
it's fine.
If
Everything's
you haven't followed the conversation, we're having the civ vote on Monday. So I'm encouraging people to start campaigning for their civ that they want to play. So this would be when people need to start their campaigns, like go France, go China, try and get people to vote for their particular civ. It's going to be a top 5 vote, so it is multiple choice voting using a point system. It decided against brackets finally. Mostly, for one thing, I want to get it done with quickly, and if we do brackets, it's going to take weeks.
And we sort of decided we want to launch this, like the first session by the launch of Gathering Storm to get the PR boost, so we need to get this done quickly. Also, have you seen the citizenship province proposal checkmate?
Pulling that up right now.
Because that's something he's been really pushing.
I was seeing the stuff that he's been saying, really upset about citizenship there, but okay.
I mean, I feel bad for the guy because he wanted to do Civ 5, but that lost, and now he wants provinces without censorship, and that's looking like it's going to be a loss too. I feel like
it's sad, but unfortunately, that's how democracy is. Democracy is the model of government in which nobody gets what they want. That's kind of how it is. It's based on you get a bunch of people to speak their mind, and it's very rare for people to be completely unanimous, which means somebody is getting outvoted. Somebody is not getting what they want. And so when people feel like they're not being represented fully, they're not getting what they want out of government, it's true, because it's not possible in democracy unless people are 100% unanimous. That means some people, no matter how good their arguments are, how right they are not going to win out. But I'm not trying to say Jack isn't isn't going to be represented or isn't going, we're not taking him seriously or anything
Take away his
else.
vote.
But what I'm saying is feeling, feel bad for someone, but that is democracy for you. Is someone's going to get left out. So I'm actually going to read his proposal out. Preferences that should be left up to the community that don't drastically change the effects of the proposal. Provinces defined. There would be 2 to 4 separate provinces. No person would be assigned citizenship to a single province. Provinces would be separate civs that are placed on the same team. Whether these civs would be duplicates or unique civs would be entirely up to the community. Each province would have its own legislature that would manage choices to decisions directly impacting its own province, trade deals, district placements, city projects, etc., selecting its own Speaker of the House, Prime Minister, who acts as the executive of the province as well as a regular legislator. Now, provinces would not be allowed to declare war by themselves and drag other provinces into war with them. When declaring war, all legislators in all provinces will vote as one body. What margin of yes votes would be needed to declare can be left up to the community. How provinces choose who gets to build a wonder is a work in progress. How legislators would be chosen and separated out. There would be an election to choose parties to represent the legislator using a proportional voting system in which the entire player base is eligible to vote in. Important note about parties: to ensure total fairness, no party should ever go unrecognized by the election should it have even one member, and no member of the community should have their right to create an officially recognized party impeded by any legislation or the moderation. In order of party of the most to least vote share, legislators will choose which of the regions they want to be a legislature in. Should be a legislator in. Each provincial legislature will have an equal number of legislative seats to each other, thus have a limited number of seats that legislators can opt to fill during the separation process. The role of the executive is each provincial legislature will select a single member of its body to be their Speaker of the House / Prime Minister, who serves as the executive of each respective province on top of also being a legislator. The executives will collectively serve as a ministry playing the game itself. Each Speaker of the House / Prime Minister will get to choose how they move their own province scouting / military units. Each Speaker of the House / Prime Minister will be able to fill in the blanks for events unaccounted for by the legislature in their own province. This does not include declaring joint wars with AI or denouncing leaders because an AI asked them to. If at war, the executive has control over what peace deals they accept / reject unless mandated by the legislature, or to not accept peace or peace deals that do not include a specific concession demanded by the legislature. If there is an even number of executives, there needs to be a tiebreaker vote for peace deals, perhaps popularly elected head of state, such as monarch or president. Okay.
Cool.
So, first thing. Go ahead.
If I got one thing out of that, it's that he wants the government to be recognizing parties officially, and I don't think that's a good idea.
I do think if we start having government control over parties, which is what
that's a bad. I think one of the best things about this constitution compared to other games is that we don't legislate parties at all.
Yeah.
Like there's no control over what is a party. Only moderation will decide if you get a Discord role or not.
We did have to have a vetting process. You had to have a platform, a certain number of members, and moderation had to approve it because you could not simply copy another party.
Well, I think for Mark IV to get Discord role, which was seen as official recognition, all you need to do was a platform and a post on a Reddit thread. That was it.
That's really not too
I didn't post on any Reddit threads. I had a party.
But we still had to screen parties, and we rarely rejected a party. One particular instance was the Nazi party.
And that's one of those parties that you just gotta reject sometimes.
We had to make it in the rules that that things like Nazism were not allowed. So, yeah. Instant no on the Nazi party. Actually, it was more of a hell no. from all moderators who were online, happened to be online at the same time. We all said it at once.
Oh boy, now there's
Well, there
confusion.
go my plans for this, Mark.
Yeah, hopefully moderation is still feels that way.
The only governing body of the parties.
Yeah, because I don't know what would happen if a Nazi party sprung up right now, but hopefully moderation would still be a hard no on that. Because that's just a whole element we don't need here.
Correct.
That and
I mean,
it's banned in Germany.
Well, did they lift the ban in Germany or no?
I think it's still on that you can't advocate Nazism in Germany. That it has to be contextual in some cases.
Apparently, Demohoy got good Nazis. I heard the party was
if we were
a bunch
doing
of
a World
dicks.
War II simulation, I might feel differently, but I really I'm not a fan of Nazis in any way, and I really don't want to see that culture build up in Democraciv, especially lately with what's going on politically.
Nazis without the Nazi stuff. So basically, an ism.
Well, I mean, if you have a party that's fascist, that as long as they're not like kill all of such and such. That's getting, you get to where you're splitting hairs. Like, oh, well, they sound kind of like Nazis. But specifically, it's Nazi imagery or hate speech. We don't need that here.
Yeah.
We don't need to foster something that's still a real world issue. It's like we don't really want a jihad terrorist thing going on here either.
There goes Plan B.
There are kind of issues like Siam Fein did have, of course, some inspiration to Sinn Fein, which is itself related to the IRA, which is the troubles in Ireland and all that. So I mean, there was some real world parallels to that, but it wasn't quite. It's not the same as putting up a swastika, even if it is a sensitive issue in some areas.
Mike.
So
Now, when did that happen?
That was Mark II.
Fair.
Also, recognizing all parties, including one-man parties, would mean that, hey, if you want to get into the legislature, just make your own party instead of going independent.
Well, that's kind of the thing, is independents have been treated as their own parties, as one-man parties.
Yeah.
So it's not that ridiculous.
True.
I mean, it just means we're going to be assigning a lot of unnecessary roles.
I only feel bad for moderation.
That's not my problem anymore, so take that.
Okay. But what do you think of the proposal as a whole?
Okay. Well, first off, this is designed for the multiple civs. And
I think it was designed specifically for Civ 5, but that lost the vote.
So this is designed for having multiple civs played at once, which I don't feel is particularly great. Each province has its own legislator that would manage. Basically, what this means is that we break we're just breaking up into committees that each have probably equal power, but it's at a first come, first served basis.
So basically, RB's idea of committees itself, specific task. It's
really
just
committees that would be divided into different civs. So we're playing a 4-player game that would split the player base by 4 by making the legislators divide into 4 houses of equal power that would each be playing their own version of the game, but the population itself would all be united still. It's kind of strange.
Sounds like a confederation more than a federation. Get what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't.
Here's what I think. So when it comes to provincial systems in Democraciv, and basically any Civ game, playing multiple Civs, the biggest issue is that you can't, middle of the game, decide, hey, let's create a new province, let's create a new state, create a new Civ, and then that has its own government.
Right.
You have to decide, so how many Civs are we gonna have? 3? 4? 2? I don't know. And that's not something that you should be put in the position to do immediately.
Yeah. It just really makes me think of the Democraciv experiment, which didn't work out, which was based on this kind of idea of splitting the game into multiple civs. And I really would like to talk with some of the Democraciv people about what went wrong there. So anyone who is in Democraciv who's in here, speak up.
Where's Atlas at these days?
Wait. When did Democraciv happen? Question mark.
Sometime during Mark 3.
Oh,
Yeah, that's when it started.
is it still going on or
It died really fast.
Oh,
I think it was just one man's dream and a few other people who were mildly interested for a week.
Yeah, it didn't
Oh.
work out.
anyway. I'm trying.
Alright, so this.
I think I get where Jack is coming from. Question mark. Like he believes that citizenship is just adding a system of complication for no other reason, and he thinks it could work out without citizenship. But you move a lot of the RP potential of having a legislative province when you take out citizenship, because by then you're just dividing into committees.
And there's not really a point to it without there being some player involvement in the division. And I keep thinking
It ends up with the only point being that we have an advantage of having 4 Civs, and that's
come up with legislative seats anyway. It needs to be based on the population regardless. So how do we?
I'm guessing
sure
it's
that the system is always basing it on the population. That can be really weird when you're dividing that into when you're splintering the community into areas. His system doesn't do that. His system doesn't divide the population, but it divides the legislature.
Yeah.
I think my idea was that if we're going to no citizenship, what you do is that if you want to make a province, the executive declares the provinces, but you still have the legislature, the total number of seats in the National Assembly based on population voting. Like 20-25% of people who voted equals the number of legislators. And then use the in-game pop points to determine the size of each committee or province, and that decides the size of the local assembly. I think that could work better because you're still going off population, but you also have a reason as to why you're divided into committees.
Right.
What do you think of that idea?
Well, it makes sense, but I don't know. We have a bunch of different communities within one civilization.
Yeah, it's a bunch of communities in one civ. It's assuming one civ.
Okay. Well, that would probably work. Probably.
Yeah, like if you don't want any provinces, then don't declare a province.
Yeah.
But if you do want a province, you're dividing it based on the in-game population plus the number of seats in total.
You mean in-game population?
It's decided by.
Like.
Okay. The number of seats in the national legislature, which is all the legislators combined, it's based on voter turnout.
Not
your
in-game,
population.
But, not the in-game, like not say population of 8 in.
No, not now.
Because that's what I.
No, that's terrible. No, that's terrible. No, not.
Yeah, because we had
the number
that
of legislators in
total.
Before, yeah, I realized that, but like this is why I asked this because I use both. Let me explain. So voter turnout determines how many legislators there are in the National Assembly,
Right.
which is the legislator, like normal.
Right.
However, if you're going to divide the national legislator into smaller committees for each province, then that's going to be based on the in-game population. Like, say, a third of the in-game population is represented by Province A. So a third of the National Assembly gets assigned to Province A. And it's all
So
voluntary.
it sounds a
Like,
lot
if
like my
you-
system, except that you're assigning the legislators after the fact.
Yeah, exactly. You're assigning it after the fact instead of
Yeah,
before.
whereas my system, you vote for the legislators for each state.
Yeah. And my system involves a monarchy, which I don't know if people are gonna push for that, but I think
the most
in my
popular
system,
choice right now is ministry.
yeah. Well, I try to combine a monarch, which is the head of state, with a royal court, which is technically a ministry, but
So I'm thinking if I were to take my system and put an executive right now, I think the best compromise is what if the governors were ministers?
well, in my system, the local assemblies will appoint their own speaker, which will represent them in the royal court, which is the executive
Which
branch.
is pretty
So,
much
yeah.
the same role the governors play in my current model. Is they can be replaced by a representative, but there's always somebody represented on the federal level. Which you call it a royal
I
court.
think
It sounds
that-
like the same thing I'm proposing under a different name.
It's the exact same thing, but as monarchy
I'm
installed.
just wondering now.
Like,
My model is really based around having a president, but people want a ministry. So what if the ministry is the same as the royal court?
yeah,
Maybe we pick a prime minister who is popularly elected.
in my system, what I did is that if there's no province available, then the legislature directly elects the head of government, which would represent them in the royal court. And the king, the monarch, and its heir, the proxy, will make up the royal court along with the head of government. But if you have provinces, then the heir becomes the head of government, and the provinces elect their own speakers to represent them in the royal court, and they run the game together with the heir
So
and the
if
monarch.
we take any reference to a random number generator out, what makes your monarch not a president?
Assuming that heir, basically, inheritance, basically, he could declare the next president. But if people don't like it, then they could just force abdicate the heir and make it popularly elected, or something like that. Like, that's the biggest challenge with the monarch: how to not make it sound like a president while still being fair and democratic.
Why can't it sound like a president?
Roleplay.
Mm.
I'm trying to put in a monarchy, but I can't. Yeah, just go around.
What do you mean we can't have a monarchy?
Exactly.
Just randomly select one person.
I think
No, I
They
think
become
I
the
just
monarch.
think a monarchy.
I
And
think-
then
Well, for one thing, as far as roleplay goes, takes away from the democracy, but it also takes away the voters' ability to vote someone in and out very easily. They'd have to basically do an impeachment process if they don't like the monarch.
And then the monarch sues, and then everyone gets annoyed.
Yeah, I
Devolving
understand
courts.
why the I understand why you don't like my system, but I don't know, it's just an
No,
idea.
it sounds like your system is almost the same as my system, just with a different name and with the different executive.
Monarchy.
The monarchy.
Yeah,
system.
that's why I agree with your system a lot.
Alright. So, we pull this list down, then goes table. Back to the
I mean, to be fair, there has been elected monarchies in the past. Like, we could just put an extreme term limit, like 6 or 8 weeks on the monarch, like we do with the Supreme Court. And he's basically just a president with a fancy name, like the Holy Roman Empire. Emperor was an emperor was basically just a king with a fancy name. Let's be honest.
Or we could just have a pope later. We had popes in the past, and that was pretty.
Mm.
Elected monarch church or whatever.
And also, you have the Poland with the Sejm, and they get to elect the monarch every time he dies. I was trying to base it off that system. Once the monarchy dies, you elect the monarch. And I was trying to figure out how we determine when the monarch terms end.
Yeah, and that's going to be a problem with a monarchy system. Is how do you decide those lengths in a way that's democratic? And if you decide they
D20
just
dice
happen
roll
to
every
have
day
a
to
certain amount
every
of time, like they have a certain number of weeks or months or terms that they get to be monarch, that's a president.
Exactly. That's why my solution was RNG.
Yeah, and then you get into RNG. That completely takes democracy out. There is no voice for anyone in an RNG.
I mean, unless you impeach, force abdicate, which is impeachment, basically.
Right.
That's not the process. We
So
discussed
basically,
that.
what you have is a flavor text that takes away the illusion of democracy.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
That's gotta be. That's like the biggest problem with trying to put in a monarchy. Which Haldir has the idea of, hey, we have a monarch, but it's just ceremonial, and they declare their head of state, and they do basically nothing. And if they try to do something in government, they could be easily
Honestly,
abdicated.
If we want to go for a ceremonial monarch role, give it to Towel. I mean, he has probably the most right to be claimed as a monarch here. He's totally inactive. He doesn't do anything, but...
I mean, that was the idea. I was just trying to... Like, my problem with a ceremonial monarch is, why would you be a monarch other than RP role?
Right.
Play. I was just trying to give the monarch, or let me use more accurate term, the president and vice president, more power, and there has to be a reason as to why you want to be president or vice president. Because I remember West saying, oh, back in Mark III in the presidential system, vice president was useless.
Just like in the
So I was trying to figure out, so I was trying to figure out a way for the vice president to be useful in the system.
We haven't figured that out in America yet, so...
So, my idea was that, hey, they get to head this... They get to head the executive branch while the monarch just chills out and acts as the tiebreaker. That was my idea.
You know, in the real world, the job of the vice president is to act as a life insurance policy. If we could find a way to make that work...
I mean...
American citizen, $20.
I mean, the president might be impeached within the week, but you know...
That's every week.
Yeah. I mean, it's becoming more and more inevitable, but let's not get into that. How many days has the shutdown been around?
A month now.
28.
28, holy crap. Okay.
One whole February, which, by the way, once February rolls around, we do the...
What happens?
Well, since we've been in the government shutdown for as long as it's been February, it's 28 days.
The thing is, nobody can say what's going to happen because the whole point of Trump's campaign is Trump's win is that we've been applying what we know and what we've experienced in the past and kind of the expected rules of how people act to what's going on. And every time you do that where Trump is involved, you're wrong. And so if we're thinking, well, this is what it's going to take to impeach, or this is what it's going to take to break the shutdown, or this is what it's going to take to build a wall, or this is what it's going to take to this or this is what it's going to take a diplomatic trip to visit the troops in Afghanistan, it's not going to work. This is like a guy who's just pure chaos, who's just purely about breaking whatever convention, whatever logic, reason, and whatever kind of etiquette that we've had is all out the window. We don't know what's going to happen. We can't predict anything other than unpredictability.
I mean, there's talks of the RNC trying to pressure him to resign.
Do you really see that happening?
Probably not good. No,
he's
not Nixon. Yeah. He's not Nixon. He does not care for the RNC.
No, he was never a Republican in anything but convenience here. He was a Democrat before. He's whatever he
Yeah.
feels like being. He uses people however he wants to use them, and now they are so invested in this that. And there's something really screwy with Mitch McConnell and Devin Nunes, especially. Something weird is going on behind the scenes, and so nothing's going to happen. And I just wonder what happens when this blows open, when you find out why they've been acting so strangely. Because something's not right.
Actually,
Revolution.
I'll be back in a minute. Be right back.
Time for the rich. So 14. If we are going to province, main.
No, I've figured out what my proposal for executive is.
Well, I need to go. Are we doing this next week too?
I want to do these on Tuesdays, definitely. Do we want to have a meeting on the weekend? Saturday, I am completely busy. Sunday, I have nothing happening at all.
Spotty. Not sure.
Sure, I can do it.
Sunday? Okay,
Yeah,
what time
no
on
problem
Sunday?
for me.
Because that day I've got the whole day open. Actually, no, I have the evening. I think I'm going to be starting a Pathfinder group. A second Pathfinder game on Sunday, but that's not till that evening.
Yeah, I think the current time as today is perfectly fine.
So Sunday, same time. And I'm going to try and work on some ideas in the constitutional working draft, and then we'll start getting some actual text in there tomorrow. Or Sunday, I mean. And on Monday, the poll is going to open. In the meantime, the vote's going to open. I want to get a debate thread open about multiple civs before I put it to an official poll, because I want to get some feedback. So, yeah, stuff going to be happening over the weekend, so... are we concluded for today?
I think so.
All right. So I'm gonna end the stream and conclude the meeting.
I don't.
So thanks for attending.